Welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, where we highlight the latest trends in law office and law practice management to help you run your law firm. Brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute. You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Hello, and welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. This is Jonathan Israel, and I'm recording today from the 2017 Annual Florida Bar Convention in Boca Raton, Florida. Thank you for joining us. Joining me today, I have Richard Granat, and we're going to be talking about a presentation he just gave here at the annual convention on basic law firm technology. Richard, thank you for joining us, and if you don't mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and what it is.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. I think I'm actually known as the person who created the first virtual law firm in America for a small firm, which was a long time ago. It was about 2002, 2003. And that concept has now begun to have some rapid currency, even though it's almost 14 years later. I thought it was going to really be a hot thing in 2003, but it took much longer than that for probably a new generation of clients who want to deal with their lawyers online to take root. Mm-hmm. And even though this presentation I gave was about basic technology, I kind of segued into this idea that I have, and which I've been talking about for a little bit of a long time, that the internet becomes a new platform for the delivery of legal services rather than the in-office consultation, particularly as you have a new generation, a millennial generation that really wants to deal with their lawyers online. And technology really does support that. In order to do that, you have to have what we call a client portal, something which is secure, which protects the confidentiality of information and enables tasks to actually be done between lawyer and client on the internet. And the internet becomes what I call the new platform. And when a platform changes, everything else changes. If you think about when Apple came out with the iPhone, that's a new platform. Think about every industry that's been transformed by Apple. And when Microsoft Word came out with a graphical word processor, WordPerfect didn't think they'd be affected by it, but the reality was it was a totally new platform, and WordPerfect was dead for lawyers in about 10 or 11 months. So the idea of a platform shift is really a paradigm shift, and technology is really very, very much a part of that. And particularly as you have a younger generation that grows old enough to have legal problems, they really want to deal with the lawyers online. You know, I have lawyers say to me, well, I need to see the person in the office, but the reality is the client just wants to text them. They don't really want to see the lawyer, they just want to text them. Right. So lawyers have to adapt their behavior to this new platform and this new technology. So I was trying to get these ideas across and to suggest that lawyers, if they want to differentiate themselves in a very competitive environment, they need to figure out ways to use technology as a spear also, as a way of differentiating themselves, because we are in a mature profession. You know what I mean by that, Jonathan?
Oh,
mature?
Yeah. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. Mature means, a mature industry to me is that if it had a matrix, and in every little cell in the matrix was a specialty, family law, corporate law, estates law, there's hundreds of lawyers sitting in that same matrix. It's like musical chairs. So we have hundreds of lawyers in every little, no matter what specialty it is, there's also a huge amount of brilliant lawyers in that little matrix. So if you want to be competitive in the future, you have to figure out to use technology not only to make yourself more efficient, but to be disruptive. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference between disruptive technology and what I call sustaining technology. Sustaining technology enables you to do what you normally did faster and quicker. But disruptive technology enables you to serve clients that were not served before, that are out there that's in a latent market. And connecting with those latent market is a huge potential for the legal profession, if you can figure out ways to serve that latent market at prices people can afford.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't mean to talk so long.
Oh, no, that's fine. That was great. One of the things you talked about briefly was about having a portal for the clients to get into, but then you also touched on this younger millennial generation that may want to text. Is the technology there where people can access these portals from their mobile device or for wherever they're at when they want it?
The concept of a secure portal is basically connected to a law firm's website. If you see a law firm website where it has a username, password, log on, that means they have a technology which is your own space. And the concept of the portal, if you sign on to Bank of America or Charles Schwab, you're basically in a portal. You're in your own secure space. So that idea is not rocket science. It's been adapted by every other industry. It's not just taking off in the legal industry. And it's really not hard to conceive, and different portals will have different features and will support different kinds of things. And they're accessible from a mobile phone, they're accessible from your computer. The point is that the gateway is the website, and the means to get it into it is the internet. That's the platform. That's how you get to it. And we hear sometimes about what we call a virtual law firm, which is sometimes people think it's a lawyer working in their pajamas and meeting clients down in Starbucks. That's not what we mean by a virtual law firm, because to really have a virtual law firm, you have to have a secure space where confidentiality is respected, and that means using this client portal technology. All the major vendors, the law practice management vendors like Rocket Matter and Clio in my case, have now forms of client portals which are part of their application suite. Some of them are pretty rudimentary, but this concept is finally beginning to mainstream.
Sure.
And once it mainstreams, that becomes the mechanism by which the lawyer can deliver legal services online.
And do you see this growing in one particular area of law or
No,
all across the board?
I think across the board, and I see in the fullness of time, for any law firm to be competitive, they'll have to have this kind of a gateway. I mean, can you imagine Bank of America not having a secure space that you can do your banking?
No.
So every law firm to be competitive, with some maybe few minor exceptions, will have this portal technology incorporated into their website, which is the pathway to do it.
Some of the other topics you kind of hit on in your presentation earlier were other technologies that solos and small firms really need to be gravitating towards, whether it's the cloud or maybe even a hosted receptionist service. Can you touch on some of that a little bit?
I did touch on those things because I said what you want to look for today are tech applications that are hosted in the cloud because they're accessible, they're easy to use, they're always up to date, and today they're just as secure as anything you'd have on premises, and maybe they're even more secure.
Right.
So using a cloud application enables a vendor to do a very complicated technology and deliver it to the lawyer at a very low cost. So this is really a breakthrough. Before we had this, it would cost you thousands of dollars to have a case management system, even for a small firm. Now it's peanuts. There's no reason not to use some of these technologies, which are essentially the cloud-based technology. It's a revolution that's going on. Right. And today you can store all your documents in the cloud. If you subscribe to Microsoft 365, they give you for free like 2 gigabytes of storage, which is plenty to handle all of your documents. It's totally amazing. And these trends have accelerated over the last 24-month period. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google all have cloud-based applications which cost peanuts in terms of storage. So the cost goes way down, and then you can access your documents from anywhere. It's really anywhere, any place computing. No matter where you are, you can get access to your data, access to your client data, whether it's in the courtroom or if it's in your vacation house, or if it's like me, where I live in Florida and run a practice virtually up in Maryland.
Yeah, I imagine, generations after us are going to be like, what do you mean you couldn't get to that file? It's on your desktop?
That's right.
It's a desktop.
We're going through a real paradigm shift.
Right.
And software eats every profession, changes every profession, every business. There's no question about it. And the legal profession is lagging behind other major industries or services, but it will be transformed by software. I mean, just look at the use of software now to do what we call predictive coding in litigation, where software now analyzes thousands of documents to see what's a relevant document. Where before we had thousands of paralegals doing it, and then we had thousands of associates doing it, and now all that workforce is being transformed and being changed by the fact that we can have software which comes up with an equivalent result. So we see the lawyer being powered by software. I call it software-enabled law practice. And those lawyers who are going to be effective in the future need to figure out what applications they can use to basically power their practice, because they'll be the most effective and the most efficient.
Another buzzword you kind of touched on earlier was disruptor.
What I was talking about was really disruptive technology. I was making a distinction between sustaining technology and disruptive technology. The difference is sustaining technology is used internally within the law firm to do things faster and more efficiently. It has to do with the internal productivity of the law firm. But a disruptive technology enables the lawyer to open up a new market space, to serve people that they haven't really served before. And an example that I like to use is document automation. So if a law firm uses a document automation tool to create documents internally, it means that their paralegal types data into an application and it creates a form. But when it's used in this disruptive sense, where a questionnaire appears in the browser and the client can put in their own data and type their own data in, and the client doesn't know when they click the submit button, the document's immediately created, that enables the lawyer to reduce their cost and therefore expand their market space. So a true disruptive technology is one that enables the provider to serve people that weren't served before. I also like to use the example of Southwest Airlines that targeted the bus passenger, not the airline passenger. And by use of a number of technologies, they created a whole new market of people who used to take the bus who now fly. And eventually, in the fullness of time, Southwest Airlines is now the biggest airline in the whole United States. So typically, a disruptor starts out low and then moves into the mainstream. And lawyers need to be aware of that because there is competition. I mean, we think about companies like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer. They're all disruptors. They're doing things in a slightly different way, but they're touching people who were not really going to lawyers because they perceived our lawyers were too expensive or really weren't meeting their needs.
Right.
So in a way, we are in a time of disruption in every industry, and it's because of technology.
Right, and it's not something to be afraid of, but to adapt and learn and see how you can benefit from.
Another point I made is it's important as lawyers to continue to learn.
Yes.
Because as professionals, we have to reinvent ourselves every decade, unfortunately. We have to keep learning. If you don't learn, you die.
That's right. That's with anything. So it looks like we've reached the end of our segment today. If our listeners have any questions that they want to follow up with you on, how should they reach out to you?
You can just go to our website, directlaw.com. We have contact information. I'm happy to we actually act as a coach. We help people, figure out what kind of technologies they ought to begin to think about employing as this new environment comes to the forefront. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for having me, Jonathan.
No, thank you, Richard. We really appreciate that.
All right, thanks.
Well, this has been another edition of the Floor Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Practice Resource Institute on Legal Talk Network. I want to thank our guests for joining us. If you liked what you heard today, please find and rate us in iTunes. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Israel. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Institute and produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com, subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find the Florida Bar, the Florida Bar Practice Resource Institute, and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.